What's up, guys? Smart Canopy here. Welcome to another episode of TASG, and today we are on Minecraft. So it's a little mix of TASG Gamer and the vlog today. Also, it's the only way we can experience Disneyland while it's closed. Today we have a special guest from Imagine Tomorrow. Oh man, I messed it up again, David. Imagine Tomorrow, right?
The host of the Imagine Tomorrow. Yes.
The host of Imagine Tomorrow. Okay. The host of Imagine Tomorrow, our good friend of the vlog, Freddy. Welcome to the show.
Hello there. Yes, this is a very intriguing way of doing this, but since we couldn't go to the parks and chat about it in real life, I guess this is the only substitute we have at the moment.
And frankly, it's a very good substitute. This is Imagine Fun with the IP. We'll link the IP in the description below. So, Splash Mountain. And I am in first-person view now. Splash Mountain's been... I don't know how to say it, because it's been an interesting 3 weeks. And we're very fortunate to have the... You want to explain the situation that happened the last 3 weeks?
So 3 weeks ago, I put up a nice little armchair Imagineering post. Oh, this is a fun idea that I've had for literally years. Why don't we just take this, this Splash Mountain over here, and we just make it Princess and the Frog? Because that makes so much more sense anyway.
And I really enjoyed that idea.
Yeah, it was more of like an innocent sort of like, oh, this is fun. But beyond that, there's a lot of issues with Splash Mountain that we don't necessarily need to get into in this vlog here. But it's more about talking about the future.
Yes.
So forget about the past. The announcement has happened. Things are changing now.
It's happening
for the better. It's happening.
And let's see what happens, because this was a very good idea of yours, and then all of a sudden 2 weeks later, it comes true. That has to be
that was unexpected.
And it took everybody in the community by surprise. I also think this was also a D23 type announcement, because it was big. It's a very big announcement.
I'd expect something like this at D23. This is the type of thing where they go up on stage and they do the whole big presentation, and then they bring out the original cast and they're like, hey, we're bringing you back to the theme park. But in this case, it was more of like the pressure of the moment and the desire to change things. That's what ended up leading into the announcement. I think like the development of the attraction, they state that they've been working on it for about a year or so, and I can totally believe them on that, from the concept art and the general idea that the attraction needed to change its theme. But the announcement itself was definitely because of the moment.
Right. All right, so let's go on this.
Absolutely. So that's one of the fun things we can do here is we can actually kind of hop on board and talk about it while we're kind of walking through the queue, and I can kind of elaborate on my idea of how this change would work. But we can also just talk in general about, what's going on with this and what happens to even Critter Country here. Because, once this is, Princess and the Frog themed and it's the Bayou, and yes, you have Winnie the Pooh next door, they don't kind of blend together as well as Splash Mountain
they do
does
not.
with Winnie the Pooh currently.
And just looking at this angle, at least the way that I have my POV, Haunted Mansion to the Bayou, would you consider this to be an extension of New Orleans Square?
I would say that it is an extension, but it's also kind of a merger between the two lands. It's kind of a case of if you are over by Pirates and how Pirates and Adventure, they kind of blend together, but Pirates of the Caribbean also works with New Orleans in some ways. It's a case where it's like, okay, we're blending these two themes in a singular attraction. And so while there are a lot of New Orleans type themes within the idea of Princess and the Frog, it is also a film that is filled with critters, so that also still works in Critter Country. I think that it's just an adaptation of what's going on here, where you might not have to change the name, but you also might want to change the name depending on how much the land changes in general.
All right, let's go over the bridge right here.
Absolutely.
All right. So would you keep Hungry Bear Restaurant as it is?
In my personal opinion, I think that is definitely one of the top spots in contention for building Tiana's palace. I feel like Tiana's palace isn't just optional, it's mandatory for this change. It's like, if you are going to build anything Princess and the Frog related, Tiana's palace has to be there. In fact, that should have existed already, like, years ago. Like, that is like the number one destination in that film. It's the thing that Tiana is building towards as a character. And so having Tiana's palace represented somewhere physically in the parks is very important for her. It's a case where, you know, the ride can be fun and focus on all the other characters in the film, but if Tiana's going to have a home, it's not Splash Mountain, it's going to be her restaurant.
Right. Frankly, I feel like, though, the way that they should do it, if they do include a Tiana's palace, is like Remy's in France, where they have it, the ride exit be the restaurant. And I don't think we have any of that here in Disneyland or even in Walt Disney World, but it would be a very interesting combination, because, you know, we have the traditional exit in the store. Why not an exit in the restaurant?
I mean, I can understand that to some degree, but I think based off of the theme that they're going for with the attraction, like what's going to end up happening. So from the concept art, you can see that Mama Odie's is going to be placed on top of the mountain. In my initial pitch, I said that I would love to see the adapted into Mama, as far as what the theme is going to be. From the concept art and from just where I think Disney's going to take it, I think as far as the outside of the attraction, the queue, the layout in general, nothing's going to really change. It's simply going to be a repainting, a retheming, and adding new elements that really blend into that Bayou feel. But in general, I think it's just a case where they're not going to invest a whole bunch of money to completely rebuild the queue, which is something that I pitched as you could take the time to actually see if you could redevelop it so that it would be more ADA compliant, or at least so that you don't have to send disability access parties down the exit kind of heading the same direction or against traffic.
And we got one popped up right over here.
Excellent.
Would you change anything about these boats, aka Walt Disney World style 2 by 2 by 2?
You can't really do that with Disneyland's. It's just not feasible with the ride system that you have. I think that you can make some adaptations, as far as you probably won't have Brer Rabbit on the front of your logs anymore. No. But otherwise, I think that the ride vehicles themselves and the entire sort of log flume will not change very much besides a heavy retrofit. Think of Guardians of the Galaxy Mission Breakout and how that attraction went through certain changes to update the ride system and make it function better. Again, as far as like the original pitch for me and like trying to do this story-wise is like, okay, you start in Mama Odie's, you're on your way back to New Orleans. I don't know, you know, it's a sort of case where in my pitch, it was more following the story of the film, where from what they're sounding, you know, what they're doing,
it's a continuation.
It's going to be a continuation, which I do support, especially in hindsight, you know, doing research and having more conversations with people. It is the right approach, especially having Tiana in person rather than a frog the entire time.
Completely agree.
Yeah. In general, I think that the outside of the attraction will see some major changes as far as like foliage. Like you will see a lot more greenery, a lot more trees, sort of the swamp bayou-esque atmosphere will be extended and sort of surround the area. It won't be as sort of southern as it was before.
I would like to see some external projection, similar to what they have in Avatar, where they have...
I'm wondering what's going to happen with that, because you have the fireflies in the concept.
Yes.
And fireflies are something that they can achieve with several different effects, whether
fiber optics
or fiber optics or lasers. They use lasers in the case of Guardians of the Galaxy during Halloween time when it's after dark, and they have sort of the lightning effect going on the outside of it. Like the electricity is sort of pulsating out from it. And I think that they can definitely pull off the effects. Sharita Carter, who is the lead Imagineer on the project, she did Runaway Railway. And so she's also basically the pioneer of surface projection in attractions. Like, she was part of that group working in development at WDI. So one of her first projects was Indiana Jones, the Indiana Jones Adventure, and actually adding surface projection to the doors and actually solving the issue with the actual rotating room there at the front. So all the surface projection you find in Indiana Jones, she was partially responsible for that. So when they announced her as the lead Imagineer for the project, it wasn't just a case where here is your female Black Imagineer who we can actually have on the project. No, she is incredibly talented. She is fantastic. So I'm really excited to see her on the project and what she is going to do. I mean, you just come in here and it's like, I mean, you have this general swamp atmosphere, but you add in surface projection, and that's going to be rather impressive.
Just appreciating the music here.
Oh, absolutely. It would be intriguing too, just having the musical change. You already have an attraction that's so heavily based on its music. Zippity Doo Dah is the theme of the attraction, the land, and it does come directly from the film. And the song itself has problems, which is one of the big issues with the attraction and its need to change as well. If the song itself has issues and racist elements based in minstrel music, well, now you throw that music out and you still have these characters the characters are still caricatures of Black representation. Then you're like, okay, well, I guess we have to throw the whole thing out. As far as the ride system itself and how does it fit with Princess and the Frog, I think it really fits naturally.
Oh, definitely.
Look at Song of the South. There's no like log ride in Song of the South. There's no sort of, river that you're going down. But you look at Princess of the Frog going down the bayou. You can just look at this entire indoor segment and just imagine that being sung. And right here, plunging down into the darkness and ending up in the other side with Dr. Facilier.
And the build up onto the lift hill, that would be amazing.
Oh, absolutely. I imagine the entire sort of laughing place being reimagined as the other side. Sort of the idea that you either get brought in by shadows. So in the scene right above that drop, sort of having the shadows that chase Tiana and Naveen in the bayou, that they actually are chasing you as well, and they actually end up bringing you into the other side. And right here, you'd have a Dr. Facilier animatronic trying to make a deal with you to get out. And sort of like, oh, I can make a deal, and if I make that deal, they'll let me go. So he has his internal sort of motivations to try and get you to go along. And all throughout all of this, you can have the shadows, you can have the voodoo dolls, you can have the masks, and really be creative with not just the physical, like animatronics or the physical representation of that, but the projection, the surface projection based system. And man, absolutely, we're going up this lift hill. Just, are you ready? Bum 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 bum.
And I love, like, that's one of my favorite songs in the soundtrack, and it's perfect for like rising tension. It's
that I think the two moments of this attraction that really sell the idea of a Princess and the Frog change are you ready? And friends on the other side, that blasting as you're on your way up to the drop. And definitely with the riverboat. Oh boy, here we go. And even if you want to continue the other side, you can continue it underneath this archway with some green and purple glows as it sort of juts you out right next to the rivers of America. But absolutely, like you can just see how the music would just translate from the film into the attraction. And the ride system makes sense. It also gives you 9 minutes as a canvas versus anything Walt Disney Imagineering makes today will be 4 to 5 minutes maximum.
Like a Rise of the Resistance. Now, so. Like the main ride for that is like what, 3-4 minutes?
Yeah, it's about 4 minutes. So it's a case where you're looking at almost every modern attraction of this scale. And again, I think the scale is something to take into consideration. If you were going to get another Princess and the Frog attraction, it would probably be something on the scale of Winnie the Pooh or a Fantasyland attraction, not something on the scale of Splash Mountain. Definitely not an e-ticket. I mean, technically for Disneyland, this is the second princess-based attraction that there is in the entire park after Snow White. And you're giving a princess a e-ticket thrill ride with a giant drop.
So this outdoor segment right here, I didn't notice a lot of anything. What would you put? in this empty
So
space?
for this entire path here, you can either make it an indoor segment with fireflies. You can either do that and have a continuation of the scene. Like you have those two options. One where you can kind of leave it as is and have this calming area. Normally that's a place where guests are recovering. And they're sort of like, we just got, down and
Drenched.
laughing and sort of splashing. And it's a case where it's a fun moment to just take a breather. And I think that there's nothing wrong with that. In fact, you can just leave that as is if you wanted to. But if the Imagineers and the storytellers, trying to translate the film over and sort of what happens after, that space is definitely ripe for some translation there. You could totally, build over it and actually create a projection environment. And in general, yes, you're just moving right back this way and continuing forward back to the unload area. And I think a lot of this is really like a lot of the environments inside the attraction function properly. Like it matches, it translates over. There's not really a big issue with that. As far as the infrastructure of the attraction goes, I mean, you're looking at a water attraction. So water attractions always have issues, which if this is an update that takes, a year of actual construction, they'll have plenty of time not just to work on the physical sets and changing over the theme, but also to make sure that the log flume is in good enough, sort of condition to last the next 30 years of function, which I think is a big benefit to the project in general. Splash Mountain as an attraction, like how long do you expect it to continue its current form before it does need an active change? And I think a refresh with a new intellectual property, it really functions. And even as an intellectual property, like Splash Mountain, Song of the South, like that's really, like, people don't watch that film unless you're looking for it. Like you can find it online, but unless you're looking for it, like it's not there for plenty of good reasons. And Princess the Frog has been sort of in the cultural zeitgeist and in
it's easily accessible.
It is definitely underrated, and definitely there's a lot of people who haven't seen the film, and this attraction in general will encourage people to watch it, which I think it is, highly underrated. It is one of the better 2D animated films that Disney has ever made. And it's a case where it's the music, it's the artistry of it that does make it sort of a late Disney classic. And you're looking at kids who were watching that growing up, and now it's been like 9-10 years or 12 years by the time the attraction comes out, and they now have money, they're now adults, some of them might be having children, and it's a case of like, oh, here's this thing that I grew up watching that was an inspiration to be Tiana as a character, this empowered female character, like opening up a restaurant and being an entrepreneur and working hard for the things that she wants in life and working hard for the people that she loves. Like, that's a powerful message.
That is.
I mean, the whole thing in the film is Dr. Facilier represents the easy way. He's making a deal with the devil, essentially, to get what he wants. And there's consequences for that versus Tiana, who is hardworking. Her evolution over the film, her character arc is more of not just working hard to achieve her father's goals, but also working hard so that she can also, have her own love and have her own family.
And that's a great story. Like that, it's one of my favorite movies and one of the greatest soundtracks also.
Absolutely.
I had a question. So Disney and this Twitter, they all want the Tokyo style animatronics, like the Beauty and the Beast ones that's coming soon for Tokyo. As much as I want that, I feel like it might not last well in terms of like an environment like a flume attraction where you're dealing with water and all that.
And I would say that definitely look at the current animatronics and how far they've degraded and how many don't function properly anymore. And just sort of looking at, I mean, if you're going to build a modern animatronic, they will last a lot longer. I think especially if Tokyo decides to change their Splash Mountain as well, then you would see that level of animatronics be brought to the United States for that adaptation of the attractions. I think as far as Tiana, Naveen, and Dr. Facilier, you will definitely see, those are, maybe you'll only have 3 animatronics. You'll have 1 animatronic for each of those characters, and maybe 1 for Mama Odie, and each of those can be up to the quality of the Beauty and the Beast attraction. And if you're only going to have 1 of each of those characters, you're just going to have Tiana and Naveen at the end of the ride. You're going to have Mama Odie like at the beginning somewhere, or you're going to have, Dr. Facilier. Maybe you'll have 2 of those animatronics down in the other side segment. And those animatronics don't necessarily have to be as complex in the body. It's more of the face. It's creating that facial animation that looks straight out of the cartoon into reality. And again, I think that this is something that's easily achievable. It's simply a factor of money and finances and doing things right. And I think that that's really what it comes down to is Splash Mountain. If you're, Princess and the Frog, if you're going to bring it into the parks, you need to, when you refresh Splash Mountain and you put in Princess and the Frog, you need to actually convince people and actually sell it to them on the fact of we spent the money to actually deliver on that. Because otherwise everyone's going to experience the attraction and say that was great, but it would have been better as its own new ride rather than a reskin. This can't feel like Hyperspace Mountain. This has to feel like a total change in theme, tone,
like an original attraction.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, I mean, that's the whole entire thing is when you're saying that you're going to bring Princess and the Frog into the Disney parks and you're going to bring representation into Disney parks, you need to do it right.
Exactly.
And I think for Disney, it's a case where they're showing the desire to do that right now. And that's why they made the announcements. And it's not like a case where we had this discussion and then it died away after a month and then it never came up again and they never greenlit it. It was a case where, okay, we announce it like it's happening. We don't know when it's going to happen, but we know it's going to happen. And they didn't necessarily say, oh, Dr. Facilier is going to be on the attraction, even though, like, that has to happen. Like, that's just part of it. It's like, if you don't have Dr. Facilier in there, like, he's already in the parks. If you don't have him in the ride, if you don't have that Friends on the Other Side moment, it's really not going to sell as well to guests.
Right.
I think it's a case where, as far as that presentation and that reveal, they are waiting till next D23.
D23.
I will not be surprised if we go to D23. You're there at the parks panel, and the lights go down.
Josh tomorrow,
and Keith David is standing on stage with a microphone, and he starts singing "Friends on the Other Side."
Oh yes.
And they make it a whole, musical number, and they reveal the concept art. And they interview Keith David as Dr. Facilier, and he's going to be in the ride again. And it's that sort of a thing.
I'm very excited. They were supposed to do a Destination D event this year, and they pushed it to next year.
They pushed it to next year, and even D23 itself next year is sort of in question. Just conventions in general. Are they a safe thing to do, even when we're in a sort of post-COVID era? I think that you'll still see repercussions of this. I think it's a case where Destination D, like what they should have done was gone online. They should have had online panels. They should have just had it where like anybody could pay the money in order to like watch these panels live and send in their questions and everything else. We can actually start heading out of the attraction and actually like talk outside.
Because I actually also want to talk about the surrounding area, Critter Country.
Absolutely.
What happens next?
Well,
what goes here?
Up for debate. The first thing that's going to happen, of course, is the attraction changing. I hope at the exact same time that we get a Tiana's Palace, whether that is a reskin of an attraction or not an attraction, a reskin of a restaurant in New Orleans Square, or whether that is Hungry Bear Jamboree getting adapted into, or Hungry Bear Restaurant getting adapted into Tiana's Palace. For the rest of Critter Country in general, I think that definitely everything here on the left side, anything touching Splash is going to change into more of a bayou feel. As far as everything on the right with Winnie the Pooh, I think that stays as is. And if they do decide to change the name of the land area into the bayou, it'll be a case where the Winnie the Pooh side of things will become Pooh's Corner or be labeled the 100 Acre Wood.
I like that.
essentially its own mini land. Think Alice in Wonderland with the teacups, like Mad Tea Party, and
Right.
her own dark ride in the same vicinity. It'll be just like that, just across the way from the bayou.
So would you keep Pooh Corner? I don't know if I heard
Yes,
this.
I would.
Yes, you would.
Even as just a structure, if that's going to be, you're still going to have this shop here, you would keep it, even if the entire land became bayou themed and they tore down Winnie the Pooh and they tore down Hungry Bear and they rebuilt this whole area as something different, which I don't expect them to do anytime soon. Like I think with this case, they are going to try and save as much as they possibly can.
And the hat shop that's across from Hungry Bear, would you retheme it to Princess and the Frog, or?
Absolutely. I think that's like, it's a little gift shop sort of thing, but it's very easy for you to change that. Personally, I would love to see that change to something like Dr. Facilier, or you should at least have some representation of voodoo in this part of the land, in the bayou. And whether it is Mama Odie's or whether it's Dr. Facilier, have some of that representation in here. I think it's a case too of looking around and figuring out, okay, what's the infrastructure like? Like,
Right.
What are we able to do with what we have now? What do we need to change?
Because I also look at that space and I think it's perfect size for beignets.
Oh, absolutely. I think that beignets are something where you will always have the beignet sort of window over in New Orleans Square, but I think that there will be a beignet cart or some sort of beignet dispensary over here by the new Splash Mountain. Like,
Because you have the,
tied into it.
you can see, I think you have, it's the lemonade stand, and then just across from it, it's the perfect size for it, and it would also not like ease the crowds in the New Orleans Square area, because that area tends to get very busy, especially when they release a brand new limited time beignet like this stand here. You can just turn it into a window service.
I think that that's very possible. I think, that's one of the two options. Is one, it can be window service, as like, here's more beignets, here's some more treats, or you can turn it into another gift shop sort of themed after different characters rather than like having them all focused on one area. Because I think that's another thing, is if you look down at like Pooh's Corner, like that will definitely have merchandise themed to the attraction.
Well, all right. I think that does it. Thank you.
Disneyland. I
Yes.
don't know if we want to do a second episode where we actually go over and look at Disney Worlds, because that's definitely where the like more interesting discussion.
Because I think in that little corner you'll have Country Bear Jamboree, yes? Or am I?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Because it's the railroad berm, and then you have a splash on one side, and across from it
Splash
Country
Mountain
Bear.
makes absolutely no sense where it currently is in Disney World anyway. Literally, here's the South, and it's between an area that's out in the far west and Frontierland, and I just don't like it's between.
Yeah.
We have the Country Bear Jamboree, and here's Frontierland with Thunder Mountain Railroad, and I don't even understand like it even fitting in where it is now. And so making the adaptation and putting in this whole bayou sort of setting and placing it right there next to the Rivers of America. Now, the Rivers of America, it makes sense because that's the Mississippi. Like that's, it works as far as here's the river. Like, so when you're putting down you Splash Mountain, but you're connecting it to the bayou theme instead, and then you connect that to the Rivers of America, you have the riverboat coming by, it all makes sense and it all connects together.
Well, all right, Freddy, thank you for joining us. So part 2 on the Palace Network, baby.
Possibly. We'll see. But again, thank you for having me on board.
For sure.
For anyone out there, you can check us out at Imagine Tomorrow as far as the podcast. Also at Terminus Terra on Twitter. So feel free to reach out and we can have plenty of discussions on themed entertainment and the future of the industry and attractions in general.
Mark Cafe, thank you guys for watching. Please hit that like and subscribe for more. We'll see you guys soon. So long.